a land where a king once claimed to be God.
Leave the God of Musa, or I will kill you!
By Allah, you may take my breath, but I will never deny him. My Lord.
A world where an entire people lived in prostration, not on their feet. These were the people who saw the sea open, who saw the waters rise like mountains on either side.
Musa, look at us. Our backs are still scarred from the bricks we made for Pharaoh. Why did you bring us here just to die? I finally have my children out of chains. I won't lose them to a war we can't win.
And then the words came out, clear enough to be remembered for generations.
You're the prophet. You're the one with the miracles. So go. Take your Lord with you and go fight them.
This is the story of Bani Israel. Assalamu alaikum. Today we're not watching a nation get lost. We're watching what happens when a people reach the door and refuse to carry the weight of stepping through. How does a people witness the greatest miracles in history, food falling from the sky, water gushing from rocks, and still look a prophet in the eye and say no? What happened inside their hearts that made the land of promise feel heavier than the chains of Egypt? And most importantly, why did Allah decree that an entire generation would have to pass away in the desert before the gate would finally open? The answer lies within this story. To understand the full story, you have to understand the life they escaped from. Egypt wasn't just a civilization, it was a superpower. It was a world where being a slave was the only thing they knew.
Stop looking at the sky! The sun is still up! Keep pulling!
This was a system where your value was exactly what your hands could produce, nothing more. In that place, you weren't a person with a name, you were a tool. And for hundreds of years, the people learned one way to stay alive: stay small, don't be noticed.
Shh. If the guard hears a cry, if they hear you, quiet, my love, quiet.
This wasn't just fear, it was a habit. For generations, even having a child felt like a crime, and breathing felt like something you had to ask permission for.
If they have time to complain, they have time to think. And if they have time to think, they forget who owns the ground they stand on. Increase the workload.
So when Musa alayhi salam came with a message of freedom, it didn't sound like a gift to everyone. To some, it sounded like a death sentence. They saw the miracle, they saw the end of the tyrant who owned them. But as they stepped into the desert, they realized the hardest truth of all. You can take the man out of Egypt, but it takes 40 years to take Egypt out of the man. That weight didn't stay in Egypt, it followed them into the desert. As the days stretched out, the march became its own kind of pressure. Heat that didn't ease, thirst that kept returning, and a horizon that looked the same no matter how far they walked. People spoke less, saved their breath, and carried their thoughts in silence. On one of those days, they came upon a small settlement near water and shade. A local tribe was gathered there, not preparing to travel, not packing, not moving on. They were standing with stillness, facing a row of stone figures. Bani Israel slowed as they passed. The scene didn't shock them as much as it should have. It gave them something they hadn't felt in days, a fixed point, a place to look, a place to stand. You could see it in their faces, tired eyes lingering, as if the stillness itself was attractive.
Oh Musa, look at them. They have gods they can see. Make for us something like that. You are a people acting ignorantly. Do you want me to seek for you a god other than Allah, when Allah is the one who favored you?
That hunger for something they could see didn't just go away because Musa alayhi salam spoke to them. It just moved deeper into the crowd, waiting for the moment they felt alone again. And that moment came when they reached Mount Sinai. Musa alayhi salam gathered them all and told them he had to go up. He was going to receive the guidance they had been promised. the Torah, and he wouldn't be back for a while. He left his brother Harun in charge of the camp, but you could see it in their faces. To them, Musa wasn't just a leader. He was the only thing that made this desert feel like it had a destination.
Musa, how long? How are we supposed to know what to do when the night gets dark and you're not here?
Allah has promised me this time. Stay with my brother. Hold on to what you've been taught.
The first few days were quiet, but then the silence started to feel heavy. And when a camp full of thousands of tired people starts waiting, the silence doesn't stay empty. It fills up with whispers.
He said 40 days. It's been 40 days and we're still sitting here in the dirt like orphans.
I want to know who's in charge. Harun talks, but he's just waiting too. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, and the man who brought us here is gone.
Harun alayhi salam went from tent to tent, trying to keep them steady. He could see the patience slipping through his fingers like sand. But impatience has its own way of sounding like common sense.
Why do you keep staring at the rocks? You want an answer that doesn't hide. You want something that stays with you, even when Musa doesn't. You want something your eyes can actually see. We have the word of Musa. He left us with his brother.
And where is he? The mountain swallowed him. You are a nation, not a group of children waiting for a father to come home. You need something of your own.
Give it to me. All of it. Let's make something that settles the heart.
One by one, hands started opening. It wasn't because they all wanted to leave Allah. It was because the crowd had a momentum of its own, and when you're tired and afraid, following the crowd feels safer than standing alone.
What are you doing? Stop this! This isn't the way!
But nobody looked him in the eye. They just kept dropping their gold into the pile, moving as if they couldn't stop, even if they wanted to. This is how it happens. It's a few days of waiting, a few whispers by a fire, and then hands opening one by one. And the moment it made its first sound, the test truly began. At first, nobody called it worship. They stood around it the way people stand around a fire at night, because it gave them a place to look, because it gave them a focus, and because it made the empty desert feel a little less lonely. But slowly that circle tightened. What was a curiosity became a habit, and what was a habit became a law.
We're just keeping the people together until Musa comes back. Look at the camp. Men are arguing. Children are crying. Everyone is on edge. If we don't gather around something, we'll tear each other apart.
We've been walking in circles, staring at a mountain that says nothing to us. At least this is right here in front of our eyes.
Then Samiri spoke, not like a madman, like a man who understands crowds.
You were scattered. Every fire had its own talk. Every group had its own anger.
Some of you were ready to turn on each other before Musa even returned.
You wanted something that keeps you together. Something your eyes can return to when the night gets long. Here it is.
Musa went to speak to his Lord. He went for the book. So what are you saying to us?
I'm saying you've been left down here with the thirst and the children and the fear, while he's on the mountain.
This is your God, and it is the God of Musa too. He went ahead to find it, and he forgot it was right here.
Slowly, the language changes, from something to gather around to something to follow. That was the moment Harun alayhi salam stepped into the middle of the storm. He didn't come with a sword, he came with a desperate urgency.
My people, you are being tested by this. Your Lord is the most merciful. Follow me. Hold on to the command we were given.
Don't speak to us like we've become disbelievers.
We're not breaking anything. We're not leaving Allah. We'll stay as we are until Musa comes back.
Harun alayhi salam warned them, and they answered him with the most dangerous kind of refusal, one that sounds temporary, so it feels harmless.
Someone is coming! He's coming down!
What is this you've done?
When you saw them turning away, what stopped you from ending this?
My brother, listen to me.
They overpowered me. If I had fought them with my hands, the camp would have split and turned on itself. I feared you would return and say I shattered the people and blame me for the divide.
And you, what drove you to this?
The excuses didn't matter anymore, because now Musa alayhi salam was back, and the crowd that had found comfort in a piece of gold had to look the truth in the face again. But the damage was already done, because once a people bow together toward the wrong thing, they don't just stand back up without a price. The camp didn't need another warning, it needed a reset. Musa alayhi salam had returned to a people who had already gotten used to a wrong thing standing in the middle of them, and in moments like this, leaving the symbol in place only gives the heart time to justify it. So he went straight for the calf. In front of the crowd, the gold was pulled down, thrown into fire, broken, crushed, until it was no longer something you could gather around, admire, or fear. When the shape finally collapsed into nothing but burnt metal, a strange, heavy silence spread over the tents. Their answer was gone, and they were left staring at each other in the cold light of day. Then Musa alayhi salam turned to the people and spoke what had been commanded. The Quran preserves his message clearly. They had wronged themselves by taking the calf, and repentance would not be a private apology whispered into the desert. It would be purification. Ibn Kathir explains what that meant on the ground, that those who stayed firm would be ordered to carry out the punishment on those who had fallen into worship, so that the sin would not remain living inside the nation.
Musa, what is this word you're saying? How do we wash a sin like this? Are you saying we have to against our own blood?
Tell us what Allah wants from us, and we will do it.
You chose the gold over your Lord, when Allah is the one who favored you. Now the hearts must be cleared, and there is no easy path back from where you've gone.
And then the camp began to separate. Those who had bowed moved into one side, faces lowered. Those who had not bowed were gathered on the other side. Nobody felt righteous in that moment. They felt terrified. They felt ashamed. They felt like the desert had forced the truth out into open air.
Father, is it really going to be us? Are we supposed to do this?
Just ask Allah to accept this from us. We have no other way.
Many Mufassirin mentioned that it was a day of absolute severity. It wasn't a battle, it was a tragedy. It was a painful, bloody cleansing that left the camp stunned and much smaller than it had been the day before. People were struck down by their own neighbors, their own cousins, as an act of absolute surrender to Allah's command. And then, after the price had been paid, the Quran closes the scene with the line that gives it its meaning. Allah accepted their repentance. They had survived the sea, they had survived the desert, but that night they learned that a nation can be wounded most deeply by its own hands. After the calf was burned and the camp was quiet again, nobody truly felt safe. The day was filled with silence, but at night the same cold thought kept returning to the tents like a thirst that wouldn't go away. They weren't arguing about idols anymore. They were arguing about what comes next and whether they were still part of a promise or just people waiting for a disaster.
Do you really think it's over? Do you think Allah accepted us after what we did? If Allah didn't, then what are we walking toward? Just more sand? Just more graves?
That's what keeps me awake. We keep moving like everything is fine, but look at the faces around you. Everyone is thinking the same thing.
That kind of fear is a disease, it spreads. If the leaders looked unsure, the whole camp would collapse into panic again. So Musa alayhi salam decided to take the leaders of the people back toward the mountain Sinai, so they could seek Allah's forgiveness for what had happened and return with guidance that would settle the camp. Tafsir Ibn Kathir mentions that he selected 70 men from their leaders. As they traveled, the talk between them wasn't deep theology. It was the talk of men carrying responsibility.
When we return, what do we tell them?
We tell them what we are given. That should be enough.
You know the camp. Enough never calms them. They'll say, you went and came back with words again. We need something that ends the arguments.
When they reached the meeting place, the mountain didn't feel like a part of the earth anymore. It felt like a boundary. The air grew heavy, and their voices lowered on their own, as if they were afraid the rocks were listening. But in that moment, instead of letting that fear turn into humility, some of them tried to turn it into a demand.
Musa, when we go back, they'll press us. They'll say, how do you know? They'll say, where is the proof? O Musa, we will not believe you until we see Allah plainly, until Allah shows himself to us and says, this is my book, follow it.
Musa alayhi salam didn't answer with a speech. He just turned toward them with the look of someone watching a house catch fire. And then, before the silence could even settle, it happened. They fell dead, 70 men, the very ones the camp trusted to bring them back hope. Musa alayhi salam begged Allah, because if those men stayed dead, the camp would turn on itself again, and it would blame him. And Allah answered. The men were brought back to life. They walked back down that mountain quietly. There was no more pride, no more arguments. They were just men who had been taken and returned. For a moment, the camp finally felt like a nation again. After the 70 men returned, the camp settled for a while, not because hearts were suddenly strong, but because fear had silenced them. And in the desert, silence never lasts. Eventually, the stomach finds a way to speak. And Allah didn't leave them to starve. He sent them food from the heavens. Every morning they found something like dew on the ground, sweet, white and life-giving. And every evening birds arrived. It was a miracle that arrived without any work, without any markets, and without any price. But relief, when it becomes routine, often turns into something else. At first they ate, quietly grateful, because the memory of Egypt was still close, and the memory of punishment was still fresh. Then days passed, then weeks, and the human tongue returned to its old habit, remembering the past.
Is it going to be the same again tomorrow?
Eat what you have. Don't start. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying a man gets tired. The same things every day. In Egypt, at least you could choose what you were miserable with.
Soon, the whispers moved from tent to tent. Not we have no food, but we want different food. Not starvation. Preference, desire.
Yes, we'll ask.
Yes! Musa, we can't keep living like this. Ask your Lord to bring something out of the ground for us. Give us something we recognize. Give us the greens, the cucumbers, the onions. Just something else.
Would you exchange what is better for what is lower?
If you want that life, then go down to a town. You'll find what you asked for.
He wasn't just talking about food. He was telling them that if they wanted the comforts of the world they left, they would have to accept the lowliness that came with it. But the pattern was already set. Every time Allah provided water from the stone or food from the sky, their bodies became calm for a moment, and then their tongues became bold again. By now, a shadow was hanging over the camp that no one wanted to name. When life was easy, they complained. When things got quiet, they panicked. And now, as the road finally began to turn toward the land they had been promised for generations, the real test was never going to be about the food in their stomachs. It was going to be about the courage in their bones. This wasn't just a destination. This was the end of the road. This was the place Musa alayhi salam had been leading them toward through every miracle and every collapse. And when they finally stood at the very edge of it, the command came down, clear and heavy, enter. Musa alayhi salam told them exactly what they needed to hear, that Allah had already written this land for them. All they had to do was step forward with faith. But human beings don't fear promises. They fear what stands between them and the promise.
Musa, wait. Who's actually in there? We've heard things. We have families, children. We aren't just gonna walk into death because you say it's time.
Look at us. We've spent our lives in the sand. We know how to carry bricks, not swords. You want us to walk up to those walls and just die? They're ready for us. We're not soldiers.
We just got the chains off our necks, and now he wants us to go and put them back on in a different land?
I'm staying right here.
By the next morning, the fear had turned into a hard wall. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a decision. Musa alayhi salam stood before them again, and you could see the strain on his face. This was a man who had carried them on his back since Egypt, only to watch them reach for the safety of the desert because they were too afraid of the gift. And then came the sentence that broke the heart of the prophet. The words that showed they had completely thrown their responsibility away.
So go, you and your Lord, and fight. We are sitting here.
You don't say a line like that by accident. That is the sound of a nation giving up on its own destiny. And because they chose to sit, Allah gave them exactly what they asked for. The land was forbidden to them for 40 years. They would wander in a circle, the same feet, the same dust, the same horizon, until that whole generation died out and a new one rose up that had enough courage to actually walk through the door. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned the road into a circle and made time their punishment. When the decree came that the land would be forbidden to them for 40 years, most of them didn't understand what that really meant, because in the beginning a person still thinks a punishment is a moment, or a setback, or a delay that can be negotiated, and they told themselves that if they just walked far enough, if they just pushed hard enough, the desert would eventually open a way. So they marched. They walked for hours under a sun that never softened, following every ridge and every dry valley that looked like it might lead to something new. By the time the fires were lit at night, their legs were heavy and their lungs were burning, and many of them actually felt good, because when you're lost, exhaustion feels like you're getting somewhere. But then the morning would come, and with it came the kind of shock that makes the stomach turn cold. They would look at the horizon and realize the rocks looked familiar. The hills didn't look new. They looked remembered. They started leaving markers, piles of stones or broken wood, telling themselves that tomorrow would prove they weren't trapped. But when tomorrow came, and they found their own marks again, staring back at them from the sand, it did something to them that no army could do. It wasn't the fear of dying anymore. It was the terror of being stuck. The realization that you can walk until your feet bleed and still end up exactly where you started. That was the punishment. Days that looked like journeys, followed by nights that ended in the same place. Eventually the camp stopped talking. Even complaining starts to sound empty when the land itself answers every word with the same horizon, over and over again. And time slowly began to do what a single battle could never do. The ones who had refused, those who had pushed the responsibility away with their tongues, began to fade one by one. A sickness here, a fall there, a night where someone doesn't wake, until funerals became familiar and the sand began to cover, not just bodies, but a whole mindset. That is what 40 years was. It wasn't one day of punishment, it was thousands of days where the road kept folding back on itself, until an entire generation was quietly removed by time. And when those 40 years were complete, their children were allowed to move forward under new leadership, and the land was entered after the refusal had died in the desert.
I really hope this story landed the way it should. And before you leave, let me ask you something. Just as a brother who's trying to build something meaningful here, if this video helped you understand this Quranic story even a little more clearly, then help me take it to the next person. Share it with one person. That's it. One friend, one cousin, one family member. Because these stories don't spread through luck, they spread through people who care. And if you want to support this mission long term, then subscribe and leave a like so YouTube understands that this kind of content deserves to be shown. And if you'd like to help financially, click the link in the description or in pinned comment and join our community. By joining, you become a partner in this dawah. You help us put high-quality Islamic authentic stories on the screens of millions, competing with all the distractions out there. We're trying to pass something real to the next generations, and it starts with stories like this, understood properly. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum.